Hey, everybody, Dave Hagan here. Are you getting ready for next year? That's today on the Financial Wellness Podcast.
Welcome to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to the financial success. Here is your host, financial problem solver and talk show host, Dave Hagan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Financial Wellness Podcast, or TFWP as we like to call it. You're listening to episode 434. Today, we're going to talk about whether you're ready for next year. But first, hey, look. It's Nick Appel, the Nickster. How you doing, man?
Good, Dave. Good to be back.
Good to see you. This week's going to be a shorty, but I appreciate you dropping in. You know, now is the time to start thinking about next year. We're in the fourth quarter. It's fall, and it's time to start thinking about next year. It's time to start assessing how you did on this year's plan and thinking about what next year's plan might be. And a lot of people don't think forward like this. They don't evaluate their year plan. And we're talking about the financial portion of your year plan. And they just keep going year to year to year to year. And then they end up at the end and going, well, I don't know that I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. Well, what do you want to accomplish? Well, I don't know. I never really sat down and thought about that. So this is the time, especially at the end of the year, especially in the fall, to start thinking about how to go this year, evaluating how it went this year, and start thinking about what that plan for next year might be. So, hey, go out, take a walk, go to the library, go get a cup of coffee where you don't know anybody, and think about what you've accomplished this year. Go back to your year plan. You didn't have one? Well, you should have. We've talked about it many times. Doesn't have to be that complicated. Maybe scribble down on a piece of paper, but you should have at least a little something written down. And while you're sitting there having that cup of coffee or going for that walk, ask yourself these questions. Did you accomplish some of your goals? How about, did you accomplish all your goals? Are you going to get all your goals accomplished? Did some of your goals become stale and you abandoned them halfway through the year? These are the kinds of things that you need to think about. And remember that your yearly goals should spring from your overall life aspirations, which should be reflected on your tombstone statement. You don't have a tombstone statement? Well, you should. Go back to our earlier podcast where we talked about this. That's where everything that you do should spring from. If somebody mentions you after you pass away, what is that person going to say? Yeah, they spend a lot of money. They saved a lot of money. They changed some people's lives. They had a good time. Or maybe, like if you're Steve Jobs, they made a dent in the universe. But you should be in touch with that and go back and listen to those podcasts if you haven't done that. Where is your plan? Well, hopefully it's on a single piece of paper somewhere. If it's, filled in a notebook, maybe that's too much. We've always said that was too much. But it should at least be on a single piece of paper where you can grab it at a moment's notice. Or as we discussed in our goal setting podcast a couple of years ago, maybe it's in the memo section on your iPhone. I'm a big iPhone guy, and I've always got that memo. I've always got my phone with me, and I've always got that memo section. And I drop my plan into that memo section so that I can always access it. I can make a few changes if I need to. And it's always there. It's easy to carry around. But it should be in a physical something somewhere so that you can have it accessible, so that you can refer to it, stuff you can't keep in your mind. So you say, what? You didn't meet some of your goals this year? Well, that's okay. You don't have to be too hard on yourself. These aren't designed to beat yourself up over. They're designed to keep you moving forward. And it's been a real tough couple of years. Wow. Especially to deal with things on a go-forward basis. A lot of us have simply been reactive the last year or two. And you know what? That's okay. There's not a lot we could have done to change how things moved forward the last couple of years. But assuming that we have all this coronavirus stuff mostly in check, or we certainly understand it. We may be struggling with how we deal with it as a country, but we understand it. And I think most of us know what we need to do. Now it's time to start visualizing what you would like the next year to look like. Think about things like, what would be your perfect day? We played that podcast about 3-4 weeks ago. We did that for a reason. We wanted everyone to revisit that issue. What would be your perfect day? Something to think about when you start projecting or visualizing what next year is going to look like. How does next year fit into your overall life plan? Now, we're not only talking about money here, we're talking about lifestyle, we're talking about contribution to the world, we're talking about fulfillment and health and family and faith, but we're mostly talking about money because we're on the Financial Wellness Podcast here. What do you want to continue doing next year? What worked well for you? What needs to be changed? What are your long-term goals? Do those things need to change? It's not complicated. For example, if one of your goals is, hey, I want to have $1 million in the bank in 10 years. Well, just do the math. I mean, it's simple. What does it take each month to have $1 million in the bank, assuming a 7% return? There's programs on the internet that'll do that for you. You could talk to your financial planner. They can run the same math. But you just need to break it down into chewable chunks, into monthly chunks, and see if you're willing to make that kind of sacrifice. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. You know, if you want to be self-employed and you want to have more control over your schedule, how do you put in place the things that will lead to attaining that kind of a goal? But the starting point is just sitting down and writing what the first steps to that path might look like, and whether those are included in next year's plan. Maybe next year you want to buy a house. Well, what are the steps for that? You know, you need to start doing some reading and research on the process. You start to accumulate 20% down payment, make sure your credit's good, need to find a good real estate broker. We're going to spend a podcast actually talking about that, I think, Nick. That would be interesting. So stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely.
But for now, just start jotting down a few of these ideas. You're walking through the park, you're sitting there with your latte or your frappa-hoo-hoo. Just start jotting down a few ideas, what you might visualize next year to be. It doesn't need to be complicated at this point. It doesn't necessarily need to be organized at this point. Just evaluate the past year and start putting down some thoughts for next year. We're in an early stage. I mean, we're in the beginning of the fourth quarter. We're in October, so you've got some time. But just put down a few impressions, a few reactions, that kind of thing. You can come back later and organize this. And really, this isn't a fourth quarter kind of thing. You should really do this to a lesser extent at the end of every quarter. Hey, how's the year going? Is it laying out according to my plan? Am I doing and spending attention on the things that I think are particularly important to me? But it's certainly most important in the fourth quarter of the fall, because we all tend to go year to year. We all have people talking about New Year's resolutions, which I've said I don't like. I like goals. I like value-based goals and milestones, not resolutions. But I think that this is important stuff. In fact, I think it's such an important thing that we should call every listener this week. So expect a call from this next week. Not. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to do nearly that, but wouldn't that be cool, Nick, if we could contact everyone and go, hey, how you doing? Start to put together your plan for next year.
Dave, I don't get paid enough. This is above my pay grade.
We could hire a team of people, but I don't think people would appreciate a call from someone dunning them on that. They might take getting a call from you or me.
But what if we pick up a listener on TFWP?
No, I like that. We should do that. But we don't have the ability to call everyone, even though we'd like to. But you know what? We may discuss this again next week as a way to get people to think, wow, we're going to have to address this issue again next week. We'll talk about it a little bit. I don't think we'll devote the whole podcast to it. But what I want you to do with the rest of the time that you'd otherwise spent listening to us on the TFWP, I want you to go out for a walk. want you to go get a latte, sit down, spend 10, 15 minutes, evaluate what went well this year, what didn't go well this year, and start jotting down your thoughts for next year. I think that's a wrap. Hey, Nick, thanks for stopping in this week.
Well, Dave, you told me it was going to be a shorty.
Well, I think it was a shorty, right? We want everyone to go out and do a little bit of reflection.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I'll definitely see you on the next one.
Sounds good. We'll talk about it next week. Everybody, this is Dave Hagan, and you've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. If you have a question that you would like Dave to answer on the podcast, go to thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. You can leave an audio message with one click of a button, or type your message into the question box. Either way, it's sent right to Dave's phone. Remember, Dave will randomly draw from the submitted questions and pick the winner of a free 1-hour personal conversation with Dave to help you achieve your financial goals. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you receive the new episode notifications, or share the podcast via the app with your family and friends. This is your announcer, Nick Appel, wishing you every financial success.